Good morning. This lecture video is going to go over the function of the skeletal system as well as looking at the 4 categories or 5 categories that we put bones in. So let's start with the function of the skeletal system. The function of the skeletal system is there's a lot of them. So it's not quite just to provide support and shape, which is obviously the number one function of the skeletal system. So it gives our body a shape. And it helps us support our skin and our organs. The skeletal system protects the internal organs, so your rib cage protects your lungs and your heart. Your vertebral column protects your spinal cord. It provides a system of levers in which muscles can produce movement. So without your bones, your muscles would just contract, but because there's bone there for something for it to pull on, then that's what actually allows us to move. It contains reserves of minerals, specifically calcium and potassium. These minerals are incorporated into our bone tissue, and when we are low on these minerals in our blood supply, we can take them from the bone in order to provide our organs and our nerves and our muscles the calcium and the potassium that they need in order to function. And it is the site of blood cell formation. So there are soft connective tissues that fill the interior of most of our bones, and this is referred to as bone marrow. And there are 2 types of bone marrow. There's yellow marrow and there's red marrow. Yellow marrow contains adipose tissue, and the fats that are stored in those adipocytes can serve as a source of energy. So that's the function of yellow bone marrow. Red bone marrow is where hematopoiesis occurs, which is the production of blood cells. So red blood cells and platelets are all going to be produced within the red bone marrow that is found in your blood. So I think the first 3 are pretty typical when we think of what is the function of the skeletal system in our bones, but the other 2 are less widely known but just as important. Bones are classified into 5 different categories that are based on their shape and the arrangement of compact bone tissue and spongy bone tissue within them. The 5 categories are long bones, flat bones, short bones, irregular bones, and sesamoid bones. Starting with long bones, these are bones that when we think of a bone, typically we think of a long bone. So they're more cylindrical in shape because they're longer than they are wide. These are going to include the bones of our arms, our legs, our fingers, and our toes. And their job is to function with muscles to act as levers, so they produce movement. Short bones are cubed-shaped bones that provide stability and support while allowing movement. The short bones in our body are going to be our carpals, which are these bones found in our wrist. You can kind of see they're a little bit more cubed-shaped. And then also the bones in our ankles, which are called tarsals. Flat bones are bones that are thin, flattened, and usually a bit curved. They are going to serve as the point of attachment for muscles. They also protect our internal organ. And examples of these include your sternum, so your breastbone, your ribs, and then the bones of your skull. And then irregular bones are going to be bones that don't easily have a shape that can fit into one of those 3 categories, or 2 categories. Their job is to protect internal organs, and they would include our vertebrae and our pelvic bones. And then last is the sesamoid bone. These are small round bones. They're typically embedded in our tendons. They're kind of shaped like a sesame seed is where they get their name from. And their job is to protect the tendon. It helps the tendon deal with the compressive forces, like when pounding on our joints occurs. And the best example of a sesamoid bone is your patella. You can kind of see in this picture how it's kind of embedded into this patellar tendon. Those are the different classifications of bones.